Watch News Weekly, some exciting stuff this week. Not every week we get exciting news, but we always get news, which is why I'm here every week. First and foremost, you guys already seen it, Gray Market Challenge 2.0. We're getting a lot of video submissions from you guys. Keep those coming. We're going to beef up our sales staff with 1, 2, possibly 3 of you, and it's going to be a fun experience. As always, for those that didn't see what we did in Gray Market Challenge 1, go back to some of the older YouTube videos and check them out on my channel, Roman Sharf. 2 of the most exciting news, I think, are coming from 2 independent brands, which I respect tremendously. First being Urwerk, the SR-71. So 10 years ago, Urwerk came out with a watch called EMC, right? Which stands for Electronic Mechanical Control, which seems to be a bit of an oxymoron, contradicts itself, you know, mechanical pieces, electric, what's going on here, right? But the idea is that Felix and Martin both wanted a watch that people could adjust, and they could adjust on their own without the help of a watchmaker. Now, this watch ended up winning the GPHG prize in both the mechanical exception and innovation category back 10 years ago. In a nutshell, the way this works is there is an optical sensor that is integrated into the movement, right? And it's linked to the balance that on demand it can record at the rate at which the balance is oscillating, right? Tiny little mini computer essentially inside, right? That's able to measure that. It obviously needs power. So if you notice a little crank on the side of the case that comes out, you actually wind it, okay, to give it power to operate, right? And then you press a button on the side of the case, right? And it tells you how fast or how slow your watch is going. And then in the back, there's an adjustment that you can adjust accordingly based on the scale that shows you in the left top corner. Enough about that. The watch itself, SR-71, the first stealth airplane created by Lockheed Martin, right? And that's an airplane that I feel that changed the world because now you had an airplane that could fly anywhere undetected. At the time, I think it was flying at Mach 3, pretty damn fast, and, you know, drop a bomb, basically. But it definitely lifted our military capabilities to the next level with that particular airplane. And of course, from that, we have other stealth planes that were born, the B-2 bomber, for example, which is even more badass than the SR-71. But the technology and everything that went into creating that airplane, the engineering minds and geniuses that went into creating that plane, the concept with the EMC is exactly the same. This is what Urwerk is all about. They're about innovation. Notice there's no tourbillon in this watch or perpetual calendar. If you guys remember the interview I did with Felix and Martin, Felix himself said that I'm not trying to create or recreate something that has already been done. We want to create something new. We want to continue pushing the boundaries. And this watch was actually designed with the help of my good friend Jason, the watch designer on Instagram, if you guys follow him. They spent some time around the airplane, him and Martin both. They were there inside the plane, outside the plane, taking inspiration to this particular design, and I think they knocked it out of the park. Not only am I a big fan of the EMC watch in general, I'm a huge fan of this new iteration dubbed the SR-71. Next big piece of news, if you guys remember the video I did with Benjamin Arabov, which was the interview we did at Jacob & Co. in New York, he showed me a mystery watch that I couldn't show you guys on camera while the cat's out of the bag. That mystery watch that he showed me there was the new Bugatti, right? And Fanatics Fest, Jay-Z sets up the 40/40 Club inside the Javits Center. Well, first of all, the event itself was insane. Ruben just literally destroyed every and all sports cards events in the world. Like the National, the biggest card event of the year that takes place every single year in different locations. I mean, Fanatics Fest knocked it out of the park. I'm talking about, yeah, you had all your card traders, your collectors and memorabilia stuff and everything else, but you had, I mean, Tom Brady just casually walking through, Jay-Z casually walking through. Anybody who was anybody in sports from the Yankees and the Mets or the New York area was there. WWE, all the wrestling guys and girls were there. They had setups for UFC that had the hexagon set up. For WWE that had that whole thing set up, like where the wrestlers walk out and hype up to loud music. You were able to do that yourself by walking out. I mean, so much more. A soccer setup, a baseball setup, just everything and anything you can think of. Travis Scott had baseball cards made as a collab with Topps that they were selling at the show. You had to wait in line for 17 years, and then those packs are like reselling for $2,000 on eBay. Again, enough about Fanatics Fest. That event was unbelievable. If you're into sports collecting, highly recommend you go to the next one. But Jay-Z received that watch. Why does it say Jay-Z? Because Jay-Z was the first one to receive that watch, and he was spotted wearing that watch at that 40/40 club pop-up at Fanatics Fest in New York last weekend. Yeah, it was last weekend. It was obviously in honor of the Bugatti Tourbillon, the car, because they named the car Bugatti Tourbillon, right? And it was unveiled a few days before the watch. 1,800 horsepower hypercar. It's the most powerful model in the French marquee history. And it's going to be able to hit, they're saying, 276 miles an hour. But forget car, let's talk about the watch. And the watch mimics the dashboard. There's a lot of talking about the dashboard of that car and how it's done, and a lot of people are not fans of it. Like, I actually spoke to a guy who is a previous Bugatti owner, and he said, I'm not a big fan, and I spoke to another one, and they're excited, so everybody kind of has an opinion, right? The case itself, you have two sapphire openings, okay, they kind of mirror the car windows, right? And of course, the retrograde hour and minute indicator resemble the tachometer and the speedometer that you see in the car itself. And even the winding crown mimics the rise control knobs. And the V16 is an operable mechanical automation, as you've seen in the previous models from Jacob & Co. And it's made from a singular piece of sapphire. I can't even imagine what the rate of error on that is to have to cut out that engine out of a single block of sapphire. I'm sure they've cracked a few before they actually made one, right? 16 cylinders, 16 titanium pistons, and again, they're driven by a single axis crankshaft. When I saw it in person back at Jacob & Co. in New York a few months back, I told Benjamin, which was his baby, he said, I told him he knocked it out of the car. First and foremost, the size is smaller. Bugatti watches are big from Jacob & Co. Not everybody can wear it. They scale down in size, which was amazing. Second of all, notice, what's the one thing that's missing from this Jacob? There are no diamonds. And Benjamin himself told me, he's like, it took me a long time to convince my father that, hey, can we just make a watch without diamonds? All in all, I said it to Benjamin in person off camera last time. They knocked it out of the park with this watch. And I am not surprised that Jay-Z ended up being the first one to pick this thing up, because it's just ridiculous. And hot take for you, I am going to have one here. I am definitely going to do my best to try to acquire one. I know they're super limited, and I know that they're not going to be that easy to get, because there's already a line out the door of people wanting them, and having someone like Jay-Z put one on and be the first one to be spotted with it, I think goes a long way as well. And oddly enough, if you want to talk about first, 25 years ago, Jay-Z was also the first person to get the 5 time zone watch from Jacob, a watch that I actually consider iconic from what it did to the industry. Perhaps not the biggest horological marvel like this Bugatti, but certainly an iconic timepiece. Let's move to Franck Muller. You don't hear me talking about Franck Muller often because, well, nobody really talks about Franck Muller, and a brand that used to be so hot when I started out in the business that it was the hottest thing since sliced bread. I mean, if you owned the Franck Muller Conquistador, King Conquistador chrono on a bracelet, that was like owning a Richard Mille today. But they kind of got lost in translation, unfortunately. Wrong moves within the companies. I don't know what happened, but bottom line is Franck Muller is not what Franck Muller used to be. But the reason I'm bringing him up is they just came out with a $70,000 lighter. Yes, a $70,000 lighter. Now, this is a ST DuPont collab ex Franck Muller, and ST DuPont, when it comes to lighters, they're second to none. They're top-notch product. Pens as well, to be fair. I own a few ST DuPont lighters. They're amazing. But this thing is a watch, right? And it's a bit larger than your standard lighter. It's 39 by 66 millimeters because you have to fit a watch inside. And the dial have Franck Muller's signature exploding numerals in a variety of colors. This is, what was that model called back in the day? It was called Color Dreams. When they came out with the watch, they called it Color Dreams. They did it in the crazy hours where the hours were all over the place and the hour hand would actually jump. Which, by the way, I tried wearing a crazy hours a long time ago. It was like all the rage when it came out. It's a pretty complicated thing to do. Horologically, I would look at my watch and I would literally get anxiety. Like when your mind is used to certain things and looking at certain things a certain way, you jumble up the hours. It literally gave me anxiety. But there were a lot of people that like that watch. So the skeletonized movement is amazing. I like the fact that they went with the Color Dream scheme, i.e. the different colors everywhere. I think it's a cool trinket for somebody to whom money is no object, because 70 grand is a hefty price tag to drop on a lighter. And there are ST DuPont lighters out there that get up there in price. Perhaps they don't have a watch inside of them. Do I like this collab? Yes. Simply because you grasp two worlds. There's a lot of guys out there that collect, heavy-duty collectors of ST DuPont pens and lighters. And, those collections get in the millions, believe it or not. And I think I like bringing that collector world into the world of watches because you're shining light onto WATCHMAKER of Franck Muller from the collectors that perhaps normally wouldn't look at it. Don't think this was a fair trade-off because I think ST DuPont, at least at this particular time in juncture, has a lot more clout than Franck Muller. But I love this. If money was no object, I would certainly pick one up. Moving on to my favorite independent watchmaker, Max Buser. Right? And the big news is that Chanel bought a 25% stake in MB&F. My DMs blew up today when that news came out. Everybody's saying, oh, I don't know if this is a good move. Do you think this is a good move? You can't think this is a good idea, blah, 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 right? Let me tell you something. I think it's a great idea. Here's where majority of independent watchmakers struggle. And that struggle is very, very real, and it's called money. Independent watchmakers don't do what mainstream companies do. They create what they want. They create innovation. They create innovative design. They create things that are not for everybody. Therefore, they're not selling gajillions of dollars like Rolex, Omega, Tudor, and some of the other big boys, right? In fact, 2023, MB&F produced 419 watches and had a revenue of 45 million Swiss, $53.3 million. Luxury Bazaar did more than double that year, right? And their margins, because they do everything in-house, they're not that of a well-oiled machine, like the Swatch Group, for example, right? Or the Richemont Group, where they're able to take specific manufacturers that will manufacture things for 5 different brands, right? They do everything in-house. Yes, it's expensive to do so. And therefore, the biggest issue a lot of these independents have is they don't have the runway to continue growing and sometimes even staying in business. I'm not saying that Max was going out of business, but what I am saying to you is by the House of Coco Chanel investing money into this brand, what it does is it preserves the opportunity for Max and his friends to continue doing what they're doing, and that's wow in the world of horology with new innovation, horologically with new innovation in terms of designs, and continue making this, you know, these crazy pieces, this crazy creativity, which is what Max Buser is all about. The House of Coco Chanel, this is a new thing for them. They've been building up their watch portfolio, if you will. They have stakes in Romain Gaultier, they have stakes in F. Journe, and they also have stake in the movement maker Kinesi, I believe. So this is not their first rodeo. I think it was an excellent move for Chanel. And I think this is a wonderful thing for the brand MB&F as a whole, because now you have a partner behind you that has money, for the lack of a better term, and it's going to allow them to, again, continue doing what they do, and that's being, you know, a kid trapped in an adult's body designing the type of watches that Max and the teams design. So in my opinion, this is great news for MB&F, and congratulations to Max. Let's talk about Swiss watch experts. They gain, right? You know, we always talk about the market. I look at these numbers as sort of like a high-level idea of what's going on globally, and we saw a slight gain in July, right? And it was really Japan and the US that offset the drop that China caused. 1.6% by value in July from a year earlier, as the numbers of watches exported during the month remained constant. So shipment rose 1.6% by value to Swiss 2.2 billion, about 2.6 billion US, I guess, at this point. In July, from a year earlier, as the numbers of watches exported during the month remained constant at about 1.4 million units. And this is according to the Federation of the Swiss Watch Industry. Now, the increases were driven by an 11% jump in export to the US, the biggest market, and 26% surge to Japan, which overtook China as the second biggest market for Swiss timepieces. Trust me when I tell you that's temporary. China wakes up, they're going to put everybody to shame once again. Now, the gains were countered by continued export declines to China and Hong Kong, which fell 33% and 19% respectively, as a downturn in real estate values continued to roll consumer sentiment. Now, I will tell you from personal experience, this is very nice and global and so on and so forth. Hong Kong has been down. It's been down due to a lot of changes in regulations of how business is done in Hong Kong. Right now, we're in the midst of redoing all types of paperwork with our accounting firm in Hong Kong and our office because of some regulations that were changing. Because before, people used to walk around freely in Hong Kong with a bag of cash, buy, sell, trade stuff. That was perfectly legal. Now those rules are changing a little bit. You can still walk around with a bag of cash in Hong Kong, but just there's certain regulations that are taking place where they're trying to keep more track of that, I guess. Whatever it is, it's causing a downturn, and Hong Kong and China is directly related because at the end of the day, let's face it, all the goods that are making it into China, they're all going through Hong Kong one way or the other. And the last story is going to be about a brand that sort of my go-to. We don't sell fashion brands. We don't sell a lot of brands which I don't consider bad. I just consider them less expensive. Now, one of those brands is Tissot. So whenever people reach out to me and say, hey, listen, I have a budget of $500 to $1,000 or maybe $1,500, what would you recommend? I always recommend Tissot, right? And the one I always recommend is the PRX. Now they came out with a green automatic chronograph. Surprise, surprise. Every brand jumps on a bandwagon. Now, whether you're somebody like Vacheron, where you're selling watches that are in 5-figure ranges, or Tissot that sells watches, up to $2,000, why not? People want green, we will give them green. Now, they drew inspiration from the Tissot 1978 Sea Star, right? Which is, also a watch with an integrated bracelet. Now, PRX, which stands for precise, robust, and X representing 10 bars of water resistance, that's how that watch was born to begin with. With the green one, now there's 4 PRX chrono references. That this is the 4th one? Yeah, this is the 4th one. Now, look, the watch retails in the United States for $1,895 or something like that. I think in euro, it's a little bit over 2,000 euros. So it's expensive for Tissot, but yet still affordable, right? And at the end of the day, again, you get what you pay for. Yes, you get a nice ETA movement. You get a good machine in there, right? It's going to work. The watch is going to continue to tick. Don't expect that movement to be highly decorated or modified in any way, shape, or form. This is a watch that's mass-produced. But I've always felt there was a lot of value from PRX from 2 perspectives. Number one, aesthetics. It is a good-looking watch. If tomorrow you take that watch and you put the word Patek Philippe on it, or if you put the words Audemars Piguet on it, or any other major brand, it will sell for 5 times its value and nobody will ask any questions. Tissot's been around since 1853, so the history is there. And third, it's a watch that's going to work for you. Is it going to be the most accurate and the best chronograph out there? No, but it's going to be a good chronograph because that ETA movement that's in there is a proven work machine. So a lot of value all around, aesthetically, from a history perspective, and obviously from the horological perspective. So lo and behold, great job on PRX. And for those of you guys that have always wanted to ask me a question, where do you find value in that 2,000 and under price range if I want to buy myself a brand new watch? This is usually my go-to. Maybe I should start selling them. Maybe I'll call them. Tissot, if you're watching, call me. Guys, that's going to do it for us today. Some really exciting news this week. Between the Bugatti and the new AMC and news from Max, I think this has been a pretty interesting week in terms of news. Of course, many other things have happened. As I told you guys before, if you see an interesting piece of news out there that you would like for me to cover, send me a DM on my Instagram @RomanSharf. Other than that, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you next week.